As the Extreme channel is pushing towards 50,000 subscribers, these are just a few of the statues we're giving away on the journey there. If you want to know how to win one, stay tuned for later in the video. Welcome to the Extreme channel. We are all about extreme collectibles. My name is Mr. X, and today we are looking at a number of Carnage statues. Yes, Carnage is a Marvel character that is the first son, so to say, of Venom. Venom is a big anti-hero in the Marvel Universe who was spawned from the black-suited Spider-Man. So Venom is actually an alien that's bonded with a human being, most of the time Eddie Brock. And way back when I grew up and read comics, he created another character called Carnage. However, Carnage, or Cletus Cassidy, who was a serial killer, is absolutely evil. He's not the anti-hero that Venom is. He was most recently featured by Woody Harrelson in Venom 2: Let There Be Carnage, which was an okay movie. I think we can all agree cinematic film has not done Venom justice, ever. Because Venom is one of my favorite characters. And in the past, I've owned over 30 Venom statues. I still have about a dozen or so and more coming. But today we are looking at Carnage, who's gotten a lot more popular in the last few years because of Donny Cates. Donny Cates has created a new storyline called Absolute Carnage, where in summary, Carnage is resurrected from the dead with godlike powers. The symbiote has spread to almost every Marvel character you can think of. All of them wore a symbiote or Venom/Carnage costume for a time, both heroes and villains. I'm really excited because the omnibus of King in Black, which Absolute Carnage is the predecessor to King in Black, that brings the god of symbiotes, Null, who I believe is going to come into the Marvel Cinematic Universe sometime in the next 5 years. And I'm a big fan of King in Black and Absolute Carnage, hence all the collectibles in front of me. Now, every single one of these I have done a detailed review on, with the exception of this one right here, Sideshow Collectibles most recent premium format. So we're going to see if it holds up to the rest of these pieces. Now, as a disclaimer, there's some other Carnage statues out there that I've both owned and not owned that technically could square off against these. First is the original Sideshow Carnage. I believe this was a comiquette. I've never owned this or seen this in person. I do know it's quite popular. I never liked it. However, I really hated Sideshow's previous premium format for Carnage, which I did own. I owned before I started a YouTube channel, so I don't have a video of it, but I am not a fan of this piece at all for multiple reasons. Then, of course, there's always customs in the works. One I almost grabbed was this diorama right here. I think looks absolutely fabulous. However, as you can see, I already have too many Carnage statues because I have one more coming in. It's actually a life-size Carnage bust. This looks absolutely amazing. And that is actually a custom. Some of these are customs. From here on over, these are actually what we call private unlicensed commissions. That means a commissioner makes a small run of these, usually numbering under 50. And they are not approved by Marvel. The two on the left, though, are approved by Marvel. Of course, we have Sideshow Collectibles, the most recent, and an older one, which I think still holds up, XM Studios. Now, I've done a number of comparison videos with different statues. We call them Extrumbles or Extreme Rumbles. That is not the format we're going to take today because we are comparing 5. I'm briefly going to talk about each one, and we're going to see in the end where they rank. Also, since I'm not doing a traditional review on Sideshow Collectibles, there's a ton of good ones out there already. Gem Mint is an absolutely fabulous one. I'm just going to do a brief video of my thoughts on him towards the end, so stay tuned for that. Now, as you may or may not know, I used to keep all my symbiote-related pieces at my office. But recently, I actually had to move everything out of my office. So now they're here in the home, and I don't have enough room for all of these, so I am going to have to sell some of them off, and I don't know which ones. We'll probably determine that today. What I wanted to do is briefly talk about each one, some unique characteristics, things I liked and I didn't like about that particular one. Then we'll count them down from best to worst.
Strike that. Reverse it.
Let's do them in the order that I actually received them, starting with XM Studios over here. One thing I really like about XM Studios is the fact that it's a much darker red. I always like that. It's more of a bloody appearance for me because Carnage is a pretty nasty guy. XM Studios also has a number of great switch outs, both for the arms and the portraits, which I always thought was pretty cool. Not to mention the fact that XM Studios predates all the other ones by quite a few years. So their ingenuity and originality was always pretty good. One negative thing with XM Studios, the resale value doesn't hold well. You can usually get that for dirt cheap, about $200 or $300 cheaper than the original retail price, which kind of blows my mind, especially since it hasn't had all the competition that it has now. But you could even get it that cheap years and years ago. The assembly of it is kind of a mess. The tendrils that go all over, while they look cool, they look more like a mess and they're very difficult to put together. The next one I got was this custom one right here. Now this one's very different for a number of reasons. First, it has 5 different switch out portraits. I love that it has the axe hands. So that's a classic part of Carnage. He actually uses his body, his symbiote suit, to change into weapons. XM Studios has like some long pointy spear-like things, which is neat, but the axe is a classic Carnage trait, so I really like that. One unique feature that this piece has is the tendrils that are coming out aren't the symbiote black that all the other Carnage statues ever made, for the most part, pretty much have. And this is actually more truer to Carnage. He actually comes out and they are red and stabbing weapons, so I really like that. On top of the fact you have 5 different cool portrait options with this. Now what's really neat about it, while I can't give you any information on it, that Carnage bust I'm getting actually comes from the same producer. We're going to give a display where I can display all 4 of those portraits. He did that with this Venom piece right here. That's very, very cool. A negative part about this, I think it's almost too light in the paint with red. Now granted, that could be an easy fix with the repaint, but I also think the black tendrils aren't as cool on this one as the others. The third one I got is actually this one in the back. Now, if you recall the original video, he has a flag on him, and this actually came damaged. So Mrs. X was able to fix this guy right here, and she's still fixing the actual flag. Now, he normally has tendrils coming out. Now, one cool advantage of him is that's a very cool storyline. It's almost like WandaVision for Carnage. USA Carnage or American Carnage. I really like that it represents that cool storyline. I also like that he is propped up. You can actually display him really well behind other pieces. Because as statue collectors, we have 3 enemies: our spouses, boxes, and display space. I also like you can display him with or without the flag. He is overscaled compared to the rest, however I know this was very intentional, but I am not a fan of that. I also don't like the fact that you really only have one display option for the portrait. And while I think the flag is really cool, I definitely think there's some design issues I talked about during the review that I still stand by. And then also, I think the detail on him is very minimized compared to the rest, especially like the striations on the actual body of the suit. The most recent custom one, I actually did a video on a few days ago. You can check it out here. This one is very cool. I called it simple yet complex at the same time. There's not really any switch out other than some display options on his fingers. I think this is probably my favorite suit overall. Not only the striations on the red suit and how dark that red is, but also the fact that the tendrils seem to tell more of a story than any of the other Carnage statues. I don't like the portrait on this one, and unfortunately it's the only portrait. I think that's the big negative. But I also like how manageable it is to display. Then we come to Sideshow, and I'll talk a little bit more about it. Now with Sideshow, there's a few unique things. One, there's no different display options. What you see is what you get. You have to display it like that. Thankfully, I think the pose is fantastic. I love the fact it's a huge scythe on his right arm. They did a few variations with the paint that I haven't seen before. We'll look at that during the close-up video, but essentially there's some blue in the tendrils and more yellowing of the eyes. I like that they added a little bit to the base. It tells a little bit more of a story. It does seem a little underscaled for Carnage compared to the rest. While Carnage is clearly not as big as Venom, this seems a little bit smaller than the rest. While we're not really talking about price because this isn't a true extrumble, this one has the best value of any of the statues up here, but it also has the largest edition size by far with over 3,500 of these made, where the 3 on the right are below 100, and I believe the XM was right at 1,000. So he's the easiest to get, not only because of the affordable price, but there's going to be tons of them. But a lot of the things like the portrait and the bodysuit, I think it's not the best in the group, but it's near the top. So my overall thoughts, paint and sculpt, concept, I love that the base is the actual cell he broke out of. That's pretty cool. Like we talked about, he's kind of sitting on the top of a mound of destroyed building when he broke out of it. You see the rebarb coming out. You see broken, crumbled rocks, the cell sign. Pretty neat. And the symbiote, like we talked about, almost alive. It's moving everywhere. It's throughout the base. It's throughout him. You have the spikes coming out of the back of just the symbiote, not his actual suit. So a little bit different. I love the cleaver. That's one of my favorite things on the XM Studios version. The fact they don't offer a tongue, like I said, I'm okay with that because I'm not a typical fan of the tongue, although sometimes it can look good. Interesting they covered his junk up. But one really interesting thing is I've never seen on a Carnage statue is there's highlights of blue within the symbiote. The black symbiote has highlights of blue, which is a common theme when you have Venom statues, but I've never seen it in a Carnage statue. So I kind of like that it's different. They minimized the seam lines where they could, but they're still definitely there. I think the paint looks great. I would have liked a little bit more vibrant red, maybe. It's even more vibrant on camera than it is in real life. They have a slight hint of yellow in the eyes. The paint's not incredibly clean. It almost looks like it's damaged. Having a hard time getting it focused at the top. There's a better shot of it. So definitely could have improvement there. I think that's more of a quality issue on it. It's interesting how they did his toes. Just gave him 2 toes, part of the suit down below. Maybe the other ones are just mixed in there, but a little bit different. So it is impressive, especially for the price. And I think there's a lot of good things on here, the different shadings of red. But as we talked about, I don't think it's the best one, and I really thought it would be. Although, like I said, for the economical price, the pose is pretty badass. I like that a lot. I like the cleaver. I like the tendrils coming out. I like his stance, which I guess that's his pose. But yeah, it's pretty badass. Not necessarily the best, but I do like it quite a bit.
Now, the way I like to rank stuff is if I had to sell them, which one would I sell first? And it's not always because it's the worst one. Sometimes there's other applicable things. So for that, I'm going to go to the American Carnage in the back. The reason I'd sell him first is he's the tallest, and that is a concern for me. He doesn't fit well in a lot of my display cabinets. And also, like I said, I don't see the detail in the suit, and I worry a little bit about that flag coming on and off. Although I do like the fact I can hide him behind other statues like he is now. So he comes in at number 5. Number 4, I didn't see this coming, but I would probably sell XM Studios. The lack of detail on the base, and maybe I've just had it the longest, so it's kind of lackluster, even though it has some awesome display options, but I hate how messy the tendrils are on the suit. I do like how easy he is to display, but I would probably sell him next, which pretty much surprises me. Now, really torn for the next one, simply for most of my display cabinets are 24 inches tall. This custom will fit in it, but this one won't. Now, if this custom fit in it, arguably, I'd easily get rid of this one, so this one would be number 3. So we're going to call this one number 3 because I think the portrait is incredibly important. Also, it has a lot of the same similarities that the Sideshow one does and that the XM does. So I think that's why it's number 3. Although I was really tempted, and I'm shocked how much I actually like this if you remember the review. So we're going to put this custom museum pose at number 3, although I do plan on keeping it. Number 2, I'm going to go with Sideshow on this one, which kind of surprises me. Because I do like the paint better on Sideshow than I do number 1, which we'll talk about. I do like the pose quite a bit better as well. And I really like what they did with the symbiote, and especially the scythe. I think that's pretty awesome. But I'm almost tempted to change my ranking from this number 2 to number 1 simply for the fact that it's more displayable. However, I have to consider the custom on the right here has 5 different portraits, does stuff with the tendrils that I think is more true to Carnage. I love the traditional axe hand because that's such a big Carnage part. I will tell you this, I wish this had the paint job that Sideshow did, that darker red, and it fit within one of my display cabinets. It would not even be a tough decision. This would clearly be number 1. But we're still going to give it number 1, barely. I think there's a good argument that Sideshow is up to props with this one to go head-to-head. But I think another factor I'm kind of thinking about is everyone and their mom can have Sideshow with 3,500 copies made, where this one, less than 100 people in the world own it. But like I said, I think an argument can be made either way. So that's my thoughts. So what do you guys think the best Carnage statue is? Is it one of these out here? Is it one of the other ones I talked about? Or is it one that's coming out? Throw that down in the comments below. I read every single comment. See what the other people are saying. And if you disagree with them, make sure to tell them they're fucking stupid. Because apparently that's okay in our society. And then you could also win a statue by telling somebody they're fucking stupid. We will be giving all of these statues away, plus additional ones at every 5,000 subscriber milestone. To win one of these statues, all you have to do is make sure you've liked this video, you've subscribed to the channel, you've hit that bell notification, and then just drop a comment below. Every 5,000 subscriber milestone, we are going to do a random drawing and pick a random comment and give one of these statues away, plus some additional ones I'm not showing right now.
The more videos you comment on, the higher your chances are to win.
Guys, whenever I say thank you for watching, I really mean it. Thank you so much. Please hit that like button. These videos take a while to make. That takes seconds for you to hit that like button or subscribe. Talk to you soon. Take care.